Welcome to Gartner ThinkCast. I'm Karen Stokes Lockhart, and today we're discussing how to implement the right AI strategy for your organization's needs. We'll be talking with Gartner Distinguished VP Analyst Whit Andrews, who specializes in AI strategy. He'll help tackle the question of how leaders should look to build, buy, or blend their AI deployment, and how to create an effective framework when AI is coming from everywhere. Whit, welcome in.
Thanks so much. I'm so pleased to be here. I really appreciate y'all including me. This is a privilege.
Wonderful. We are happy to have you. And I really wanted to kind of start at the high level. And so when we hear that phrase, AI is coming from everywhere, can you tell us a little bit more about what that actually means?
Absolutely. So what we're finding is our clients are encountering AI both in terms of, think of it this way. Okay.
Mhm.
So when their workers are encountering AI, they're encountering it on their consumer devices. So they're encountering it on their phone, right? They're getting it,
Mhm.
they're getting it in their day-to-day lives. And a lot of times they're thinking, I wonder if I can bring that into my work life too. So we're talking about consumer level all the way up to enterprise grade, where you're actually seeing an organization select an AI platform that it's using to build AI that is impactful across the whole organization. So if we look at that if we try to divide that spectrum up into individual pieces, we can
Okay.
say you've got consumers who get it at home. And then when they get to work, they want to bring some of that. So that's BYO-AI, whether it's a consumer product they want to bring in, or whether it's something that's specific to their work group, they're excited about trying it there. There's embedded AI. So
Mhm.
the company might have this ginormous piece of software that serves hundreds or thousands of workers, and that's going to have AI incorporated in it.
Okay.
And then they might want to build their own AI. So they might say to themselves, well, we're going to build something either all the way from scratch. We talk to people who are constructing their own large language models. It's pretty unusual, but it does happen.
Mhm.
Or they're saying to themselves, maybe I need to do some level of blending. So I need to customize products or systems that I can get from somewhere else. And then, so you said coming from everywhere. The thing that's really different about AI, so a lot of what I just said is very familiar to organizations from many generations of new technology. But what makes AI particularly distinctive is its employment of data. And it might be that they're using data from inside the organization, that centralized data store, or it might be that
Mhm.
they're using something that they got from outside the organization, something they acquired, or something that they're renting, or something
Yeah,
that's coming from a public resource. So when we say it's coming from everywhere, we truly mean this stuff really is coming from everywhere.
it sounds like it. And I heard at least four categories as you
Mhm,
went through the embedded, bring your own AI, build your own, and
mhm,
then the blended.
mhm,
I think it would be great to break it down a little bit. So if
mhm.
we could start, tell us a little bit more. What do we need to know about embedded AI?
So embedded AI means I have this piece of software. I've been using it. Maybe it's been in house for 6 months. Maybe it's been in house for 6 years. Maybe it's been in house
Okay.
longer than that.
Hmm.
And they call up and they say, "Hey, great news! We've put AI in the product." Now it might be that it's in the product and it's just going to be there and it's running. It might be that it's something that I have to choose whether or not I'm going to turn on. It might be
Okay.
something that I have to choose whether or not I'm gonna pay for it.
Hmm.
So, this embedded AI is the idea that it is AI incorporated into a system that you already have, and
Okay.
it may or may not be your choice as to whether or not you turn it on and use it for business value.
Okay. Got it. And I'm thinking of when I go to a search engine, sometimes they're already turning it on and giving me some AI generated results.
What a great example that is, right? So you go to look for a piece of customer information. And
Mhm.
not only do you find that customer information, you find some sort of chatty piece of information that comes along with it, telling you something that you didn't know that you needed to ask. And the organization has had to make a decision or didn't get to make a decision about whether or not it was going to have that kind of change be there in place. So, yes, exactly so.
Okay. Perfect. What about the bring your own AI? What are some of the challenges we need to know about there?
Well, bring your own AI. So here's the
Uh-huh.
thing. Does the organization know that somebody's bringing it? That's the first question,
Mm,
right? So we still run into this. Organizations saying we don't have at this point any mechanism for enforcing whatever policy we've created. So it's possible that people are using AI, and we didn't say it was okay, but it's actually affecting the way that they're doing their jobs. Right on down through to something that might be a departmental level decision, where an organization, where a given department might say, we don't have access to this today.
right.
We believe we need to get this specific application in. We've got the budget, we've got the money. So, what's the process that we go through in order to say that this is okay and we're going to bring this in and use it now? And we may actually find ourselves talking about this from a metaphorical perspective in terms of
Mhm.
eating like meals. I mean, in this situation, imagine that you're sitting down around the table and mom or
Right.
dad or a non-binary parent has put a whole bunch of food on the table as a fabulous meal,
Uh-huh.
and somebody sitting down at the table comes in, sits down, and they bring a paper bag with them. They put it down next to their plate, and they're like, "Hey, I need to eat this. Either I need to eat it for dietary reasons, I'm
Right.
gluten-free or I'm vegetarian, or I just think it's really good. I mean, thanks so much for making the chicken, but I brought this Cornish hen, and I'm gonna sit down and eat it." So, yeah, absolutely. Bring your own is an interesting riddle for these organizations today.
It's a big question. When they bring their own, are they sharing?
Not you great question. Did you bring enough to share? Did you bring enough to share with everybody? 100%. And so important too, because some departments are gonna bring that meal. They're gonna sit down
Right.
with it, and everybody else at the table is gonna be like, that looks
I
better than what, I I don't know if I really still want. Could I take what's on my plate, put it back in the middle? Because that's what I want." You've
Right.
got it. That's exactly the thing. So, one, you've got people who are saying to themselves, "I want what that person has on their plate." And
Mhm.
also, maybe when that person brings it in and puts it down, they bought enough for everybody, and
Okay.
actually, it's gonna change the story if other people get a chance to eat off that same dish that got brought in, that same carton that came back from the restaurant, because not everything is as simple as just staying contained within the department or the division or the work group that brought it to the table. 100%. It's exactly why we use that kind of metaphor. Well said.
Perfect. Love the examples there. And maybe those last 2 sources we can talk about together, like, kind of how should we understand the built and blended AI, and
Sure.
maybe a little bit on what sets blended apart from built?
Sure, makes sense. So, we'll find ourselves back in the same metaphor. The
Okay.
idea of built depends on the organization. So,
Uh-huh.
um, Gartner's software engineering practice has its own way of describing built applications of any kind and blended applications of any kind. What I think that I want to focus on is what matters to an organization is what its definition is. So we respect that completely. We understand that. We give them one that they can use. But for any organization, they're going to say to themselves, if I have no AI to start with and I am not spending money to get started, so maybe I'm using open source or maybe I'm
Mhm.
going to build my own thing from scratch, that's pretty clearly going to be, we're going to think of that as being possibly a built choice. Blended is more along the lines of specific new development that is being done in order to make an application more customized and more capable of addressing what the organization needs. So we're back at the table, you
Okay.
know, and here at the table, we're saying to ourselves, you know what? I think that this meal is great, but I brought my own little things that I think are gonna give it that zhuzh that's gonna
Mm.
make it, that much tastier or that much healthier, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and everybody's got their own idea. So some people are gonna come in and they're gonna say, "I brought my own ingredients." And everybody's like, okay, well, that's fine." And sometimes it's gonna be because it's got that zhuzh, and other
Mhm.
times it's gonna be protein powder, right? It's gonna be somebody
Okay.
who's got a different goal for the meal. So that blended capability is also something that then becomes a challenge for the information technology organization, because chances are they're expected to support it no matter what.
Makes sense. So a lot of different considerations and
Hmm.
things to think about and different
Hmm.
approaches, which of course leads to the question of governance.
Hmm.
So tell us a little bit about how this comes into play when there's so many different ways and sources uh, kind of for AI.
Sure. One of the things we haven't talked about yet is what we think of as the prism layer. So, when we talk about the ability to handle risk and security, when it comes to information technology, obviously
Mhm.
that's been a key discipline for us,
Right.
for and even a practice for decades. AI, because AI incorporates data. Remember, we talked about that. What made it so different was that it employs data from outside the organization and data from inside the organization. It makes it
Yes.
inherently different. There's another factor that makes it inherently different too, and that's that it has so much social impact. So people have a
Mhm.
sense of AI that they may not have about other kinds of digital technologies. If you went to somebody 10 years ago and you said, does the cloud make you feel like a different person? They would be like, I don't know that it does necessarily, but thank you. You know,
Right.
Smartphones, though, are pretty different, right? So, I mean, the amount of, the probability that somebody at the table was going to
Mhm.
mention the cloud was pretty low. The probability that they were going to say to somebody at the table, could you put the phone down? That was actually pretty high, right? So a
It
different
was.
social experience. AI fits in that category. So what we're talking about now, you asked about governance.
Yes.
What we're thinking about is we're saying to ourselves, how is AI like prior generations of technology? And what lessons can we derive from those prior generations that we can then apply in AI? But also, on the other side, hey, how is AI actually different? Now, those two
Mm.
factors that I described are really important for us to think about. So, data privacy,
Okay.
the use of data in any environment is a keen question that is unique in this AI era. Similarly, intensified is this issue of the impact of artificial intelligence technology on people's lives, executives' lives, workers' lives, customers' lives, constituents of government entities, their lives too,
Mhm.
partners' lives. Everybody feels AI more intensely. You start talking to something, you feel different about it. It starts telling you what it can see, you feel different. It
Mhm.
starts being able to create things. A new category of human endeavor now is starting to be affected by digital technology, which wasn't up until now. So governance becomes really differently important, because it's not just about making decisions about how to route money or budget within the organization, or how to route availability of applications, or whether or not there's a way to consolidate perspective on partner selection. It's
Mhm.
now a much bigger thing. How will our workers feel? Will our workers be happy? Because we care about whether our workers are happy. We care about whether our customers are happy. We care about whether they're unhappy. And we care about what this is going to do to our business. So, those two things, you bring those two things together, the fact that data is now
Mhm.
exposed in unique ways that weren't possible or effective before, and the
Right.
fact that people are paying close attention. Those
Right.
things make it different, and we end up with different new rule sets built on top of existing rule sets.
Yeah. So it sounds like governance much more complex than what we have been used to for sure.
That's a good way of saying it. Thank you. So it's more complex. And what I'll say is it has added new dimensions. So let's go back to the table.
Okay.
So we're sitting at the table, we're having a meal, and somebody comes in and they sit down and they say, "Hey, I love that you made this meal. Thank you so
Yes.
much, parent of mine. This is great. Did you do a version without meat?" And the parent is like, well, I don't know, right? I don't know if I did. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if I still have that on the pot. So this is that kind of moment where the person who's making a decision about how they want to nourish themselves, how they want to nourish the organization,
Mm-hmm.
is affected in ways that previously weren't true. So they're making decisions about what it is to be nourished in an effective and a proper way. And so now you
Right.
have this new, so you said more complex. Yes, it absolutely has a new dimension. So dietary things have been a factor for a long time. Like, could I eat that? Can I not eat that? Am I allergic? Am I not allergic? All of these things really mattered. We started to talk about nutrients in the last 50 years. But now we're introducing this new dimension, which is how does what I eat affect a sense of who I am and how I fit into society? And so that can be surprising at the table, right? It can be something that
Yeah,
adds a
absolutely.
layer of complexity. And everybody wants to make sure that the table is a place that is both peaceful and nourishing. And so this requires us to stop and really be conscious and intentional about how we approach that.
So, as we're going over these different layers and sources of AI, one of the things I often hear are people talking about the tech stack or technology stack.
Hmm.
Can you explain what the tech stack is and then how Gartner's AI technology sandwich is different from the tech stack or similar?
Absolutely. I'd
Hmm.
love that. What a great question. So I've been at Gartner for 25 years and
Congrats.
Vic, thank you. This month, in fact,
Oh, wow.
it's been a happy journey. I've been a ridiculously lucky human to have had a job I love so much so long. Um, and I will say
Hmm.
that when in my first month, I must have said when somebody said to me at the time,
Yeah.
business is this new business responsibility, which at the time was e-commerce, which is now digital commerce,
Oh,
right?
okay.
That's thanks. I've dated myself now, but so here's the thing. So at the time they said, is digital commerce, is e-commerce something that's handled by a new stack? And for me, the idea of a stack was comparatively new at that time, and I
Right.
think that it's really it's blossomed since then. We see stacks a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Um, what we feel when we talk about the tech sandwich for AI, which, sandwiches are stacks. Let's be honest, right? A good sandwich is a proper stack of things that you're going to eat.
It
When we
sure
talk
is.
about that, thank you. The conversations around food just really never stop around this house. So the thing is that when we talk about the sandwich, we don't mean a literal tech stack in the way that we have in the past. So in the past, when we've talked about stacks, technology stacks
Hmm.
at Gartner and in the industry, what we mean is you have basic things, and then you have increasingly high level,
Okay.
increasingly specialized aspects of digital technology, which ultimately reach the person who's actually working with it. So at the very bottom, you have the question of how hardware is built, constructed, and what it's used for. And then you climb up that stack. You go up through the network, you go through applications, and then you get up to various layers above it. When we talk about the tech stack for AI, and when we're talking about the stack in the context of our AI technology sandwich, what we're talking about is we're saying those categories that you and I talked about before the break,
Hmm.
let's bring those categories and think of them as different components that we use to make a sandwich. Because
Okay.
the organization's going to have to consume all those different layers at the same time, just like you do a proper sandwich.
Mhm.
So if you have a good sandwich, you're going to take a lot of ingredients, you're going to put them together. The intention of sandwich design, I think this is important to talk about sandwich design. The intention of sandwich design is that any given bite of the sandwich
Mhm.
will be fairly uniform. So, in other words, nobody says, you know,
Yeah,
I don't
no
like
lettuce
that
on
side
half
of the
the
sandwich,
sandwich.
right?
That's right. That's
Thank
right.
you. Thank you. Any bite of the sandwich should be roughly the same as any other bite of the sandwich. But
Mhm.
the ingredients that go into the sandwich can come from lots of different places.
Yes.
So that's one of the things that we're trying to get across with this. So you asked way back at the beginning before the break, you said, what does it mean when we say AI is coming from everywhere? And what we mean is it's time to recognize that you are at a sandwich party. So you are at a sandwich party. It is highly likely that you will have to make resource decisions about how tall your sandwich is going to be. Let's
Right.
face it, any of us only has a mouth that is so large, right? You cannot fit in sandwiches that are too large. You just can't.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, you have a sandwich height maximum, right?
Makes sense.
And you're saying to yourself, and this is something that I've done in a workshop, which I'm excited about presenting, and we may be able to share a worksheet from that workshop. What we've said is, look, you've got the bottom half of the sandwich, and that bottom half is your centralized data. Now, chances are you're going to have some of your own data in this situation. Chances are, maybe not. I talk to organizations who are totally like those people. And we love these people, even though they are unusual, who are totally like these people who are like, I'm not going to have a bottom on my sandwich. Now, if that's the case, you got to flip the sandwich over before you eat it. You and I know that. That's just the way it is. If you're going to be a red-blooded person, you're going to have to eat that sandwich that way. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then you've got other layers, right? So we talked about these layers before the break. You've got your data that's on the bottom. You've got built AI. Not everybody has some. You've got trust, risk, and information security management as a layer, which is specialized, particular for AI. That's a layer that almost everybody has. I don't think I've talked to any organization yet who has said, I'm not interested in the security and the risk around my applications of AI. So that's a layer.
Okay.
Next layer up from there, you've got bring your own AI. So that's AI that you've brought in for your own sandwich. Then you've got a layer above that, which is embedded AI. So that's AI that you've ended up using because your existing incumbent vendors have told you that AI is available or have told you that AI is just in it now, right? It's, and that's the way it is. Then on that top layer, that fabulous top layer is everybody else's data. So you can't do AI without at least one half of a bun. So we are not in a place where we are talking about the kind of sandwich. And I realize that some people may believe that you can have a sandwich without at least one half of a bun, but I am not among us. No. Okay, let us wrap. Fair. We're going to have to work that into the metaphor later. So let's table that. Table that.
Let's table it.
Table that, and then we'll come back to that. For right now, we're talking about conventional sandwiches. Although, boy, you really are making me interested about like the lettuce wrap, the tortilla wrap. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to have to think that through. But for now, we've got these two places where data can be incorporated, either one or the other. And then you have the fillings in between. So the reason that we picked this was we wanted to create that sense that you didn't necessarily know here at your sandwich party where all the fillings were going to come from. And the chef has to make some decisions. Some stuff you're not going to allow, right? If somebody comes in and says, listen, great news. I've brought this to put on the sandwich. And you look at it and it's poison. You're not allowed to put poison on the sandwich. Nope. That's not allowed. We don't have that in this house, right? Exactly.
That's a good rule.
Exactly. You are offering to break a rule. We don't include that on our sandwich. You want to bring that in? Okay, that's fine, but it has to go with the security layer, right? So you want to bring your own AI in, that's fine, but it's going to have to work with our security layer because that's key. We're all going to eat the embedded AI on the sandwich because that's critical. We don't have a choice. We can't let it go. We can't be without it. We have to have that as part of it. And then people even make a decision like, are they going to do the build your own AI at all? So we did choose the sandwich because we wanted to create, obviously we wanted to have a playful metaphor, but we also wanted to have a metaphor where people could kind of say to themselves, okay, sandwich party. I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. And they might have even been to a sandwich restaurant, to a fast casual or a fast food sandwich restaurant. They might have looked down inside that sneeze shield and realized They could start with an idea, and we have put together a bunch of ideas for like, this is what your sandwich might look like if you are
Mhm.
revenue focused, or this is what it might look like if you're cost focused, or if you're seeking to transform. So we've got a bunch of different sandwiches on that menu board behind the sneeze shield, and they can be like, oh yeah, that's me. That's my sandwich. But you know what
Yeah.
it's like. You get that sandwich and then you're like, that's my sandwich, but can we switch out the cheese? Or, you know, can I get an extra piece of that particular filling? So I totally love you. You mentioned the lettuce wrap.
Yes. Yes.
Let's say that I'm telling you, can't have a lettuce wrap. Gotta have data. Gotta have
Mhm.
bread either underneath or on top or both places. And you're like, but I love lettuce. Can I have a double? Right? Can I get a double of lettuce? So that's
Yeah.
why we used this, because we want to give people that sense. Again, to go back to the beginning, we want to give them a sense that they're creating something that should taste the same for every bite. So you take a bite of the sandwich, it should taste pretty much the same. Nobody aims at a half of the sandwich and goes with that one and says, that's the half of the sandwich I want. So we want it to taste the same for every bite. We want people to be able to bring their own ideas into the room, but they also should be
Mhm.
working with a frame and a resource set that they've already got. And we want them to be doing that in a way that respects the fact that AI is both part of the long evolution of technology, but it's also unique. So the long evolution of technology says, you're going to have cheese, you're going to have meat, or a meat-like substance, which is going to serve as a protein, right? So let's just call it
Yes.
that. You're going to have cheese, you're going to have a protein, you're going to have greenery. You like the lettuce. I'm right on board with you there. I'm an arugula man myself. You're going to have condiment, or maybe multiple condiments. You might have bread. At some point, the Earl of Sandwich apparently looked at this and said, you know what? We need to have a universal experience here. I'm going to take this piece of bread. I'm going to put some stuff on top of it. I'm going to put another piece of bread on top. Now, everybody at the table gets the same thing. That's where we're talking about here. So we wanted people to get to a place where they could say, I see that AI is different
Right.
because there's data. So we're going to be putting a bun around our meal from
Mhm.
now on. So AI has data, my data, AI has
Yes.
data, their data. We're going to put a
Yes.
bun around the meal. It's different. And it's different because we all care about the sandwich.
Makes sense, and I am really enjoying the metaphor.
Thank you. It's not my metaphor. I had a chance to work with our colleagues, Hung LaHong, Mary Masalio, when they
Uh-huh.
built the metaphor for the fall keynote for the symposium series last year. And it was one of those things where you look at it and you're like, yes, this is something where they really understand how to make this an intuitive story for the attendee at
Mhm.
the conference. And we found that it's really durable. People keep coming back to it and they say, I love that sandwich. You asked me right after we came back from the break, I mean, how is this different from a traditional stack? The way
Right.
that this is different from a stack is we come back to where we started even before the break. So you said, buy, build, blend. And I
Mhm.
started talking about foods and I started talking about the table. But then as you came out of the break, you're like, I tell you what, let's talk about the sandwich, because what I want to do is I want to think about this universal experience, which is convenient, which is intuitive. We
Mhm.
start with a base. We're going to make decisions about what you can put on the sandwich and what you can't. But at the end of it, we're going to create something that's effective for everybody.
Yeah. And I think you touched on some examples as you went through, especially talking about, like, is your goal revenue generating or
Mhm,
whatever the case may be.
mhm,
But as leaders are thinking about how to deploy AI,
mhm,
any other examples you would add about how they can use this tech sandwich to help
mhm.
make those decisions?
Yes, absolutely. So, the big categories are you trying
Yeah.
to generate more revenue? Are you trying to cut
Okay.
your costs? Are you trying to
Okay.
improve your operational performance? Are you trying to transform yourself into a different kind of organization? Um,
Mhm.
and it seems clear that for any organization, they can usually focus in one of those areas. Sometimes they have to pick two of those areas. Now, once you get past that, you start to
Yeah.
ask yourself in relation to the sandwich, who are the vendors that I work with where I'm going to accept or seek out their embedded artificial intelligence? So where am I going to
Mm,
incorporate that in? Some of them, even some of the clients that I talk to, even are like embedded AI first. So what they do is they start with this
okay.
thing where they say to themselves, okay, I'm going to find out what my major vendors are offering. What do they
Mhm.
recommend I should be doing? Because I'm focused on delivering AI value. So as a result, I'm going to tell them what I'm trying to do. Hello, giant vendor. This is what I'm
Yes.
trying to do. Can
Yes.
you help me can you tell me which layers of what you usually send me, which packages of deli ingredients you usually send me? Can you tell me
Mhm.
which of those are going to be most effective for me to accomplish what I want to? Other organizations, especially if you're looking to do something like, um, the most notable thing I think is operational excellence. It's very reliant on your ability to use your own data. So
Makes sense.
when you're
Yep.
trying to do operational excellence, you're trying to do a better job than anybody else can do.
Mhm.
And it's going to be dependent on your ability to do that with the systems that you've already got in place. So you're
Yeah.
really going to look to your own data. Even if the data is all coming from familiar systems that lots of people use, it's
Mhm.
still wonderful to have all of that data um, properly integrated and in context with all the systems that you're incorporating in. So
Okay.
when you think in the kind of the issue through, Karen, what I keep coming back to in working with organizations around selecting use cases for AI is
Mhm.
I say, can you put together a portfolio that will allow you to be confident of success in multiple different time periods? So, in other words, successful in the short term, successful in
Okay.
the long term.
Okay.
Can you be successful in pursuing advanced new technologies? So, not overbalancing into one, spreading across
Mhm.
multiple. Can you be effective in satisfying all the people at the table?
Okay.
So, you want everybody at the table to walk away feeling like they were heard at the meal and they got
Yes.
something to eat that they were excited about. Then I say, okay, that's great. Now, can you concentrate around some of your embedded vendors? Can you concentrate around techniques that you're trying to apply? So, can common day to day proven artificial intelligence techniques, and
Yeah.
can you concentrate around data resources? If you've ever put together a sandwich party, and who has not, I ask you, Karen, put together a sandwich party, then I think a lot of that is going to sound very familiar, right? So you want to have that smorgasbord, right? So you
Yeah.
want to have that sideboard covered with ingredients that are going to be universally pleasing. Let's talk about potato rolls. Everybody wants a potato roll. I'm sure that's not true. And then some people are listening are saying, I don't want a potato roll. But
I'll
a
take.
lot of people, let's say 80-20 rule, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
80% of what people want can be handled by a 20% of the ingredients you put on that board,
Mhm.
right? But you're going to have that mix. So that's what we talk about when we look at the question that you asked, where, how do we think through how this can be incorporated and used? That's the most important question to ask yourself. So it's one thing to say this is what our sandwich is going to look like. As an organization becomes more advanced, it realizes that the sandwich really exists as something which is produced from that smorgasbord.
Okay. Okay. That's good and very helpful. Very helpful. There's
Wonderful.
a lot of kind of questions embedded in, so it was good to hear kind of where do you start?
Sure, sure, absolutely. And the first thing that anybody can do is any organization can 100% get started the same way we all do when faced by this kind of opportunity to nourish oneself, right? When you were, I don't know, when you were a kid, maybe your mom did this or dad did this or non-binary parent did this. You go to the grocery store
Yeah.
and you get to the deli counter and they know Does your kid want a piece of cheese? Does your kid want,
Oh, I do remember that.
right?
Yes.
Right? This is how we start with the sandwich. We start with the sandwich with like this one thing, maybe a piece of embedded AI, maybe AI that's already in some application that we have access to, maybe with
Yeah.
a piece of BYO-AI, right? You need to have the security in place. You need to have the practices so that the parent knows that the food that is being offered is safe. There's no allergy, there's no intolerance that's going to get in the way and create a problem. So you need to have that security there. You can't ignore that. But you can absolutely get started as simply as possible. You move up through the sandwiches. We know about the sandwich trajectory. There's the world of cheese and mustard. There's the world of peanut
Mhm.
butter and jelly. And then ultimately, I think that the greatest maturity reflects that willingness to walk up to that smorgasbord and know that you're going to find what you need, know that you're going to be able to nourish yourself, and that everybody else in the organization is going to be able to do so as well.
Yeah. And of course, no sandwich party is complete without a game. So if we were doing Mythbusters, what is the biggest misconception you're seeing about how leaders are thinking about or approaching this? What would you say that is?
Mhm. Probably the hardest thing is that for an executive, it's remarkably challenging to have walked into a sophisticated restaurant
Mhm.
and have seen the thrill
Mhm.
on diners' faces in the experience of having, the best ingredients and
Right.
having had them assembled by a world-class chef
Yes.
and being presented. And then for the executive, it can be a little dislocating to
Mm.
realize that when they get back, they've got a number of things going on, right? So when they get back home and they're going to put a table together for the family,
Right.
they have got a lot of things to handle at that point. So they went somewhere to see something truly exceptional and truly extraordinary. And
Mhm.
the diners were ready for the meals that were going to be served. They were willing to pay for it. So it was all of a huge experience. So then they get back. These executives come back and they're like, okay, I want the experience like I just saw at the 3-star restaurant when it came to sandwiches.
Mhm.
But you've got diners who have to get used to the flavors.
Mm.
You've got to be able to afford the ingredients. You've got to be
Right.
able to pick the ingredients. You might have a different outcome that you're trying to accomplish. So, from the Mythbusters perspective, I think the biggest myth that it's a challenge to come at is this idea that some exceptional chef, that the experience created by an exceptional chef can be immediately uh, uh, delivered at home with the same kind of flavor, the same kind of nourishment, and with the same kind of excitement, thrill, and delight from
Mhm.
the people sitting around the table. But the truth is, the people sitting around the table are their own people. And they've got their own needs for nourishment, then their own expectations, their own palates in terms of what they're expecting. It doesn't mean that those people around the table are simplistic,
Right.
um, or are unadventurous, but you can't jump from early phase understanding all the way to this high sophistication, truly extraordinary meal. So that's that biggest, hardest myth to handle, that all you have to do is come back, show people a picture of what it
Yeah.
was you just ate at the 3-star and say, now this is what we're going to do for dinner tonight, right?
Mm. Yes, I can see that for sure. And we are quickly running out of time. Wait, so one last question.
Sure.
Um, What's the one thing you want to leave leaders with who are listening to this and trying to work through their own AI deployment strategy?
So when it comes to this, so we started with this buy, build, and blend, and then we
Yeah.
started to talk through this question of what it was going to look like. So
Uh-huh.
let's look at that, and let's say the biggest takeaway is that there is no such thing as a bad sandwich. So I here on my corner lot, we grow some stuff.
Yeah.
And right now we're growing radishes. Uh,
Okay.
they will be great ingredients on a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to take a while. And if I wanted to have radishes on a sandwich in the next 30 minutes, I could dip out to my local grocery store, and then I
Yes.
could come back and I would have bought that ingredient. Is it going to taste as good? No. Is it going to be as pretty? No, because I picked what I wanted exactly to grow from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that because I chose to buy or to embed, right, this stuff, that the sandwich is going to be bad. It may be that I need to build towards that perfect, durable, deliverable sandwich, but there's no bad sandwich. So organizations should be asking themselves, what is it that the people who are sitting in the dining area
Mm-hmm.
need? So what do those departments need? How can those departments benefit from getting access to the same product, from sharing the same meal, or from getting something special that's intended just for them? Nourishment first. That's really important. And they can build a sandwich that's going to be effective in delivering that capability. They can be making plans to mature their approach as they go
Mm-hmm.
forward, and that's great. Plant the radishes today,
Yes.
but don't think that you won't be able to serve something that nourishes unless, right? So be thinking about that. What is the thing that people need? And how can I intersect the resources and the time that I have in order to deliver that nourishment? I can be making plans for something bigger down the road. But right
Mm-hmm.
now, people need access to artificial intelligence to get what the organization actually strategically has asked for. So that's the big takeaway. The big takeaway is get started, get food on the table. You can have a long-term strategic plan, but you can absolutely begin now.
Perfect. Because there is no bad sandwich. I'm going to remember that.
No bad sandwich, Karen.
Whit, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. It's been such a privilege to be here.
Thanks for listening to this latest episode of ThinkCast, featuring Gartner Distinguished VP Analyst Whit Andrews. If you'd like to learn more about our topic today, visit Gartner.com and click the links in the notes. ThinkCast will be back wherever you listen to podcasts a week from today. In the meantime, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with a colleague so neither of you will miss it.